Like to call the November 15th, 2020 Plaquemines Parish Government Budget Hearing to order at 9:19. Machines open for roll call. The record shows 6 councilmen are present. Bartholomew, Alborough, and Gouy are absent. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Morrell.
Do I have to press the button? It's working? Okay. Good morning. First thing that we'll do this morning is let Mr. Elston do his presentation. I will let you know that the budget is based on $80 per barrel. You want to
80?
come over? 80. You going to sit there or you want to? Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Like she said, the budget is based on $80 per barrel oil and 525 MCF gas. And with those numbers, I've handed out a sheet here, and it gives a historical PPG net production of oil and how it's kind of gone down to dwindling at the in 2021, 22, and upcoming 23. But the total budget for those $80 oil and 525 gas is $12,065,000 for 2023. And I don't know if you know, but the parish royalty fund is 7.5 million of that 12 million is from the parish road from the state. Those are state lease oil production, 10%. Let's see. If you have the little handout here, what I like to do, and that number $80 oil is in line with on the second page of the handout is what the state is used, ending in June 30th. These state numbers, I've kind of put little arrows on the marks and showed what they're using. The state oil number as of June 30th for their economic outlook projection for 23 was $87 oil and $4.65 gas. And since then, I've talked to the Revenue Estimating Committee. They met after that, and they revised the oil price from that 87 to 81.72, and the gas from 4.65. They actually revised that upward to $6.67.
What is it right now?
Today, the oil price is, let's see. Yeah, 89.04. That's Louisiana sweet crude. That's what we produce here in the parish. It's better quality crude, as opposed to West Texas Intermediate. The WTI is 84.84 today. So there's a $5 difference right there, and better crude. So the state, going back to the state, that's more in line with what we're at $80. They're at 81.72. And the other arm of the other thing I like to check is the Energy Information Agency, which is the oil and gas arm of the federal government. That's on page, let's see what page, page 3, the third page of the little handout, and I've kind of marked the under energy prices and what they were using for their projection of 2023. Oil is 89.33 and gas is 5.46.
What's gas now?
Gas right now is, let's see, today is 5.87 as of this morning. So, and the last two pages of the handout are just the graphical representation of what the EIA has for their projections of 2023. But what I'd like to tell you is that obviously by the chart you can see on the first page there, the last segment is mostly the Hill Core operator who has absorbed a lot of the companies in the past. So it's just mainly Hillcore. You know, you would kind of like to see, you know, they're not doing a lot in the parish now. You know, it's a bigger, medium-sized company, and what you'd kind of like to see is maybe them, you know, get loose of they're not doing a lot in the, you know, as far as trying to get the production up. They're, you know, maintaining. But sometimes you like to see the smaller companies get in there and get aggressive and start producing more, because it's more important to them of this field, so.
I talked to some senators to try to get, you know, give an inland field tax-free, drill one well a year tax-free, and then go back to the older companies that own the deeper rights
Yeah,
and make them either drill it or give it up to where Hillcore will drill it.
yeah. I
I
think
haven't
it's-
got any movement on that yet.
I like that idea. Because the smaller companies are more aggressive. They'll throw the money out and try to get that production better. Whereas Hillcore has other entities that are,
They just bought Alaska, so.
yeah, so. I think that's it. I mean, if you have any other questions.
Mr. Roussel?
Yes, following along those lines, are you familiar with the leases that are not being utilized that we could re-advertise? Or are they being held by production in such large acreages that we can't really move on them?
That's the problem. You know, the state kind of looks at that as well, because they want to release the property that they're not receiving income from. So they'll look at their leases and say, hey, you need to give that back to the state, and we want to lease it out and promote it. I mean, I can always look back and see, you know, that can always be something that maybe that the parish could kind of force with their own leases, you know,
Yeah.
where a lot of them are held by production and they'll produce 3 or 4 barrels and just to hold that lease. And that's what some operators do in different leases.
I think that we need to look at all avenues, be able to force something to change.
Right.
Because if we have thousands of acres out there that are non-producing or 3 barrels producing under a lease, we've
Right.
got to find a way to be able to change that scenario. And I realize it might be a fight to do that, but it's not in the parish's best interest to have all of its land tied up in non-producing acreage.
Agreed.
So would you be willing to look into that a little bit to see?
Sure,
and
absolutely. I can look
tie
at
us-
historical production and the older leases where, you know, the parish could maybe coordinate with the state to make that happen, where there's kind of mutual ownership. Yeah,
You mean where we have concursus proceedings that have already been decided and we're sharing in the revenue, those type of things?
yeah. I mean, looking at that, I can look at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Anyone else?
All right. All right. You're welcome.
Huh? Richie?
Yeah, sure. So I'm looking at averages of the price of barrel of oil over the last few years. So in 21, it was 69.72. In 20, it was 41.47. In 2019, it was 64.04. 2018, 69.78. 2017, it was 52.51. And then in 16, it was $40.76. Do you think we should try a little bit more conservative price per barrel to base our budget off of, given that the last few years it's been much lower? Now, to date, in 2022, the price is 102.97.
My computer's.
You know, but we had a pandemic a few years ago that wasn't really foreseen. And would you suggest that we try a bit more conservative approach?
Like, you mean less than 80, like for 2023?
You know, like maybe closer to 70.
You know, it's just right now, as of today, it's a guess. I mean, if you look at the plots, you know, in the little packet I gave you, if you look at the last, let's see, the plots at the end of the gas, I think it's the second to last page, yeah. The confidence of uncertainty is ranging from 180. This is the New York Mercantile Exchange or 180 to 40, you know. So they, you know, it's really just a guess. I mean, as far as being conservative, I mean, when you look at the parish compared to the state, we're a little bit under that, not much. But I always like to be in a conservative
Sure, I'm just,
position.
looking
Yeah.
at the trend from the last few years, and it's a little bit lower, and things are changing, of course, all the time.
Yeah.
And last year, we budgeted $67 a barrel, and the average for this year so far is about $99 a barrel. So, that all kind of goes into it as well.
Absolutely.
Be remiss if I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Rochelle?
Okay.
Okay, Scott, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, we're going to start with the fund balances and the fund balance report in the, I think it's the second or third tab in your book. I put a new yellow report in there this morning. This is through the last council meeting. The last council meeting, y'all took 600,000 out of BP and I think 2.2 out of infrastructure. So that's why the designations changed. But we're starting off with a negative 37,000 in unreserved undesignated. So we're going to have to transfer funds. Now, what's new this year in here is that bonds indebtedness capped out at 10 million. And we had an excess of 2 million, 2.5 that rolled over into sewer projects. As y'all know, we haven't had that designation in several years because bond indebtedness was below the 10 million. So, y'all could transfer some funds from here to the unreserved undesignated at the end. Y'all just need to come up with a number of what y'all feel comfortable making the unreserved undesignated. You know, 500,000, 1 million, whatever y'all want. But we can go through them. The infrastructure has 1.1 million remaining. Emergencies has 10 million. Self-insurance has 3 million. Like I said, bond indebtedness has 10 million. Sewer projects, 2.5. The American Rescue Act, we still have 1.3 million remaining in that. BP settlement, 467,000 is remaining. FEMA projects, 1 million. FEMA revenue, 17, which is just a catch-all for the hurricane projects. And then unreserved and designated is a negative 37,000. Y'all good with that?
Am I on?
Yeah.
At the last meeting, we had some discussion about all of the storms, and we were supposed to talk about that today. Is that going to come later in the budget, or can we talk about it now with this FEMA project?
Y'all can talk about it now.
Because the FEMA revenue of 17 million, that's an anticipated number?
That is, when you budget for all these hurricane projects off of LAPA, you know, all the PWs, you budget the revenue and the expense. So we have expended most of these amounts because that's how they're entered into LAPA off of our expenditures. But we haven't collected the revenue because FEMA is so slow in reimbursing us. So you still have this very high revenue budget remaining. And if you were to put that revenue budget in the unreserved undesignated, it wouldn't really be a real number because we don't know if we're going to collect it because these PWs change. You know, some of it is contested. So we don't really know if we're going to get the whole 17 million. If we don't get it, then we just reduce to 17 million and it doesn't affect the unreserved undesignated. Does that make sense to y'all?
Just a way of separating it out, so it's not in the unreserved undesignated whenever.
When will you know that?
When FEMA
As these
pays.
projects are closed out,
Yeah.
you know, as we all know, Katrina is still open. It makes up a very large sum of this. Isaac is the other very large sum of this because we really don't know if it's 90-10 still at this time or 75-25.
So the 17 million, we carry it as a revenue, but it's not utilized to balance the budget.
Right.
Correct.
So it's a number.
It's a number.
Was that money already spent?
Yes. Yes, we have expended all, you know, that's why you have such a difference between the revenue and the expenditures because we've expended it, but we haven't collected it. So
So if we don't collect any of it, what happens?
it reduces to 17 million, and it doesn't affect,
It doesn't affect any other part of our
no.
budget?
No.
That's why it was kind of set up this way. To where it would not affect your unreserved and designated, basically. Because if we put the 17 million in there, then y'all think, oh, we got 17 million to spend. And then when FEMA comes back and says, oh, you're not going to collect it, then where do we get the money from?
Now, on the flip side of that, if they come and write us a check for 17 million, then our revenues go up?
Exactly.
What do y'all, when those monies come in, what do y'all normally put that?
We go against the receivable, and it will increase your unreserved and designated. It kind of comes out of there and goes into your unreserved and designated.
Okay, because I see it's a negative figure, like you said.
Yes.
negative 37. So as that money comes in, are we expecting anything anytime soon that y'all familiar with?
Well, we could put,
Not that I'm aware of. It kind of trickles in.
Yeah,
You know.
they do send a weekly report, and, I mean, there's things that's going through the queue right now, in the process of getting closer, but they update that as it
we
happens.
could take the sewer project money and put some in, on,
I would tell you one thing that you're probably going to have to use the sewer funds for right now. The water and sewer fund did not have enough money to put the $1 million that we normally do in the annual wastewater project that Infomark uses to do the repairs throughout the year. So you're probably going to have to take $1 million of that and transfer to the waterworks fund for them to be able to have that project, those funds to still make the little repairs that they do throughout the year without coming back to y'all every time.
I also want to point out that I recently spoke to Rostan. They're closing up the IDA emergency that they still owe us, which is half. If you remember right, we did an expedited, we requested expedited funds on that, so we got half of the emergency money up front. We've more or less expended all the emergency money. All of that has been submitted to FEMA. They're going through a couple issues, and so that closeout we're expecting very soon, and that's going to be about $7 million that we would get back in cash.
And that would,
and since the last time they was here, asked for a list of PWs, that was,
You've asked them for a specific list, like via email or something, or you?
I asked them when she was here last time.
Okay.
Still haven't-
I can call Jamie after the meetings and ask her to send you an update. But that is a bulk. That is the huge bulk of our claim. We haven't expensed a lot on permanent projects yet because we all know, we have limited funds available. But the emergency, the bulk of the IDA claim should be here within the, pretty short order.
so the Katrina funds, when do we anticipate that being closed out?
Mike Gaffney and I have correspondence back and forth monthly on that. He's currently engaged in a closeout process. I can't give you definites on that, but the state and FEMA is pushing to close that out. But as you know, as I've said probably 10 times at this table, that's a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we're expecting, it's an ongoing process, but all sides are determined to close it out as soon as possible.
Do they have a requested date that we're working towards?
Would you say as a parish or?
Does FEMA say, GOSEP say, look, we want this closed out by January the 30th?
I don't have an exact date in mind, but the deadlines have approached. I mean, we've gotten emails back and forth that we've had to respond on appeals and et cetera. So it's just a constant process. I mean, if you want to know any specific project or anything, please let us know and I'll try to get you specifics on it.
No, the reason I asked that, I know in the past that I've heard that GOSEP said we want this closed out by June the 30th. And, that extension is going on and on and on, and I'm just making that date up. So I guess what I'm asking is, what is the
I'll find out from Mr. Gaffney the most recent date that they've set and goals they set and tell you. As you know, they've been extended before, and so, we're at the mercy of FEMA and GOSEP as it relates to that.
And who pays AllSouth for all these years of?
All South is paid by the percentage of the hurricane. So if it's a 90-10, FEMA pays 90 and the parish pays 10. for that. So, obviously Katrina was 100% cost share. So FEMA pays 100% of it's called program management. They'll pay 100% of the program management costs associated with that. Obviously Ida, I think, is still currently 75. So with Rostan, the parish is paying 25%. Rostan is paid, the FEMA is paying 75% and the parish is paying 25%.
Ida's not 90%?
I thought it was 90/10.
Well, it may be 90/10. I'm just saying whatever the storm happens to be, that's whatever the cost share is, that's what the federal government puts towards program management costs, is my understanding.
Newberry?
Yeah, back to Infomark. Infomark was budgeted for $1 million, but didn't they go over that this past year? Have they been paid yet, or is that in the budget? Where are we at with Infomark?
Infomark? But I will tell you right now, I had to cut their budget. Next year, y'all will be transferring more funds to them.
You cut their budget for
chemicals.
23
I had to.
to less than $1 million?
That's for the project that they use. We put money into a project that's called annual wastewater and maintenance.
Yeah.
And they just use that project to do little small repairs. But for like their chemicals and such, there wasn't enough revenues to cover the cost of all this. So toward the end of the year, we're going to be back here with an ordinance like this year, and y'all going to have to transfer them money.
So have we done that yet for this year?
We did it for 22, but I can see y'all going to have to do it again for
Yeah, because-
23.
All those chemicals have gone up, and
The chemicals have gone up,
How
their
much did you cut their
contract goes
budget?
up a certain percentage every year, and their revenues are not covering it.
how much did you cut their budget? Do you know?
Yes, hold on.
So if we know it's going to be an issue, is that because we don't have the extra funds to fund their,
They are not generating enough revenue to cover their expenditures, basically. I cut about 743,000.
I'm sorry,
743,000.
for 23? And what was what was for 22? What was their expenses?
So far, well, when we did this book, it was 7.8 million.
Why did we cut their budget if we know they're already going over?
Yeah, we got to cut expenditures somewhere. Is that?
Revenues have to be over expenditures. That's per charter. So the revenues that we think that they are going to bring in, we have to make those expenses below that.
Another thing for the next administration and council, I think they need to come together and figure out what are they expending, what are their expenditures? Are they, so it's something I would assume that the next
And at
administration.
7.8 million, I do want to say includes the capital projects.
Yeah.
I can get you what their operating is.
So maybe the parish needs to put a little bit control on their expenditures.
Operating, when we did the book, it was 5.6 million.
Thank you.
Mr. Roussel?
And back to the reimbursements that was alluded to, that 90%, 75% to All South. Do we ever get a report of how much was reimbursable and non-reimbursable that we've been asking for several years?
No, sir.
There's a number out there.
The appeals process, just so you know, the appeals process is still ongoing. So there's not, we can have perhaps a disputed number, but it's anything that they deny us, we appeal. Actually, there's something that came through my email today that I'm authorizing Mike Gaffney to go ahead and appeal. So just so you know, it's an ongoing process. So it's not a final number yet until we've exhausted all of the appeals available to us.
But we had talked about this number of 17 million being something that a lot of it is for Katrina.
I think 6 or 7 million is for Katrina.
And so,
That number?
I mean, we really don't know how much has been reimbursed that will finally be approved or not approved out of that number.
The figure that has been, that GOSEP has said may or may not be issues is roughly about 2 million total of the whole total. So There are other items that just haven't been paid yet. There's other items that they're still waiting paperwork for. We're still waiting to be processed. But it's my understanding that that figure is about $2 million. Of course, we're going to appeal that. We're constantly appealing that, and that process is ongoing.
How long have we been appealing? Let's say they don't want to pay for,
It's project by project, Mr. Kognovich, so I can't say, there's not one appeal date. It depends on the project. It depends on when we get notice of a denial. That's a difficult question to answer.
Has Fort Jackson been closed out?
I can double check and find that out for you. I don't know that off the top of my head.
thought we had some money about 1.7 or something like that for Fort Jackson.
Yes, we had appealed Fort Jackson, and we lost the appeal, although we were awarded some monies. I think it was a couple $100,000, and I'm not sure what the status of that is. We were able to make some improvements or move it to what they call an improved project. I don't follow piece by piece on these individual projects, but we took the appeal as far as we could. Like I said, of the 1.7 million, we were only awarded, I think, a certain amount, and then that's available for either an improved project or for other repairs that need to be done at the fort.
I thought that was the amount we got, the 1.7, and we could have built a pavilion or did something right up on the ground.
That's correct. Now, once again, whether or not it's where it is in the process with FEMA once the appeal's been done, and whether or not anything's been expended on that, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
So we did talk about a project at Fort Jackson that was going to be paid for with FEMA money. What we would probably need to do at this point is get back with Mike Gaffney to find out what the status of that money is. If that money has been, if we weren't awarded the total amount, or what the amount is that we have available for Fort Jackson. But that I believe is going to be a Mike Gaffney question to find out if that money's still available to us.
I'll email Mr. Gaffney today and get a response to you.
Thank you.
Any more questions on the fund balances?
Mr. Chairman, Donald Vallon. I think we all heard this past year that the water operations from Infomark was going to exceed because of the high cost of operations, as well as the high cost of the services that they need to do it. What we heard was you kept coming back to you all this past year, and now we're hearing from the administration that it's not going to meet enough money again in this year's budget. I guess my question to you all is there an operational problem? And we also talked about you all going back to Infomark and getting a reduction in their contract, and renegotiate their contract at a lower rate. I guess my question is, where are we on that? Second, is this an operational cost from doing with the water? And what I'm hearing behind the lines, it appears that we're going to have to go back to the public and ask for an increase in their water bills. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct. Several years ago, there was 3 water rate increases that were put in place. The first and second went into place. The third was stopped in 2017 and was not allowed to go into, was not allowed to become active. That third water rate had a consumer price index increase tied to it, which would have kept us up with the times. So just as anything else, utility rates with Entergy have gone up dramatically because the cost of doing business has gone up dramatically. Same as a gallon of milk has gone up, or a pound of ham. Everything with inflation has increased in cost, but our revenue from water has not in the last several years. And we are well below the average in the area on what we charge for water and sewer fees. Now, there was, Dr. Gui asked me for information on this a couple years ago. I provided him a lot of numbers. The third increase would provide between $2 and $3 million in revenue for the parish to help sustain the water fund. There was no interest on the council in doing anything like that at the time, so we did not pursue a water rate increase. But, the fact of the matter is we're spending more money to maintain the water system because the costs have increased, but the revenue has not increased.
Todd, I appreciate that, and I understand that. However, at this point in time, though, we've been talking to the public for a long time about quality of life. We have the best sewer, and we have the best water department around. We have the best rates around, and you all do an excellent job with that. The question, though, is where we're going up on these prices on there, is it an operational cost? Or is it a cost of just competitiveness out in the marketplace? Or is it the way they handle and operate and collect, or we're not collecting the fees that we should be collecting? I guess overall, have you all looked at this department and determined where are we with this thing? Before we go back to the public and ask for more money.
We've done a much better job over the last few years in collecting fees. We've kept up with disconnects for people that have not paid their fees. We've taken people to court when they've done direct connects on the water meters, when they've taken the water meter out and they've connected directly to the water source. We have been, I think, a pretty good steward of the people's money, of the water fund.
I'm not saying you're not.
And we went from, being owed a few $100,000 in back fees to less than $100,000, I believe it is now. So, we are collecting the money that is due. We just are not, with the rates that we charge, we are not getting the revenue.
Have you anticipated how much of not a rent increase, a utility increase you're talking about that possibly can go back to the public? Have you anticipated that?
Well, we did a year ago when I provided the information to Dr. Gui. It was 2 years ago, and then we revisited it again in April of this year. It was brought up again, and that third water rate increase that was foregone in 2017 would provide between $2 and $3 million in revenue.
Right now, you're operating, according to today, about $750,000 in operating deficit for the department.
Correct.
Okay. And do you anticipate that increasing?
Yes.
How much over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, the deficit's going to increase. I haven't projected it over the next 3 to 5 years.
See, everything that I look at, I guess, from these kind of operational costs is projecting to the public 3 to 5 years into the future. What are we going to have to bear? Is this coming from an operational, doing business? Is this coming from capital requirements that go into these departments? Or where are we? Because if it's operational, then it may be time that we go back out and look and rebid the contract and see what other competitors come in to operate.
We don't know that it's operational. The contract that was signed with Infomark years ago, which still has several years on the contract, said that they get a CPI increase every year. The contract increases every year, but the water revenue does not. So that those things don't match up.
How do you justify it?
How do you justify what, sir?
I say, if you don't have the revenue to support the contract you negotiated, is it time to renegotiate the contract?
Well, yeah, but we're not in a real good position to renegotiate the contract when they've got years left on their contract and they don't have to come to the table.
Okay. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I've a couple things here.
Mr. Blink?
Yeah, sure. So there are other municipal water operators out, right? Also, the community college across the river, Nunez, they're starting new water, wastewater training programs so we can get our own people trained up to do this kind of thing here. A little bit of quick math, though, $3 million annually, about 9,500 meters divided by 12 months. That's $26.31 or so per customer each month. So, I mean, that's a lot of money,
Mr. Blink, you're only taking into consideration residential meters. You're not taking into consideration commercial meters. So commercial meters have a much higher usage. So there's more to the picture than just the quick math that you did.
Yeah, so, look, and I'm pretty familiar with this because when we did the mosquito control, we tried to make it an equitable thing, and, we did it based on the size, and 9,500 was the total amount of meters, correct?
9,500 total amount of meters, yes.
Okay.
But the average bill for commercials is much higher than what the average bill for residential is.
Okay, all right. Just want to try and keep as much of a burden off the citizens as possible. That's where I'm coming from. Thanks.
To answer one of Mr. Valley's questions, basically Waterworks can't even support its operations. They can't do capital improvements anymore. Any capital improvement project that needs to be done in water will require a transfer from general fund. So they're barely paying for the operations. So that's it for fund balances? Okay. Do y'all want to review the capital projects? That's mainly just grants, what we have left?
You running the show.
Okay. Let's just go to manpower. We'll start with the amendments at the front, the second page, the blue page. We unbudgeted just 2 positions this year. One was the finance manager, and one was the small animal warden. They created another position in the health department and moved that person in there, so they no longer needed the small animal warden. All vacancies are funded, and these were the only 2 positions that were unbudgeted. The next page were just deletions, old unbudgeted positions that administration never had any plans on filling. And we had those grant workers under community action that the grant, we expended the whole grant, so those workers will no longer be needed either. So these are the only deletions that we have. Any questions on those?
So the dark colored, grayish looking color or brownish color, those are positions that are not going to be filled?
Yes, they are currently unbudgeted. And they've been unbudgeted for several years. We're just cleaning up the manpower, basically, by getting rid of them.
And so, okay.
All right, the next page, these are salary changes. We are reducing, the current interim grants administration by the end of the year will move to the permanent position. So we just reduced what we had in the interim employee training department to 20,000 in case we need to hire anybody to train with someone retiring or quitting next year. You'll have some funds in there. And then the next one will be an amendment that y'all would need to vote on, since it's an increase. District 4 Council Administrative Assistant, this would be to raise that person to what the other current administrative assistants make.
What happened there? I mean, why was that not?
When this person was hired, I don't know, for some reason they were hired at a lower rate than what the other secretaries were making. It was several years ago now, but they've always made less.
I can answer that. First year, I didn't use an administrative assistant.
Okay,
Second year, we took the salary that the administrative assistant was receiving prior to my taking office.
okay,
And Ms. Hyatt's she spent 8 years as an administrative assistant with Mr. Marinovich and the last 3 years with me. And over the last couple of years, we've asked that she be brought up to the salary of all of the administrative assistants, and it was denied.
okay.
So we're asking one more time.
The next page is some positions that administration requested to be funded. One was the Economic Development Director. Another one was an additional permit technician in the permits department. And then 4 EMTs and 4 paramedics. And from what I understand, this would be an additional crew in the ambulance department. Today, I was asked to do one for superintendent and flood control also. And might be another one.
Was that's not in the proposed budget? Is that?
No, but it would be an amendment that y'all would have to vote on.
Where would that money come from?
It would come from basically the unreserved and designated, and you would have to transfer money in there to cover it. Do y'all want to go through the manpower page by page? Or y'all good with just the changes?
Do I have any?
And do y'all want to vote on those manpower amendments now that we're discussed them, or do y'all want to do all the amendments at the end?
If you want to do them now to take care of your part, we
Okay.
can.
Let me bring this one over.
Before I support any of these changes on these positions, I'd like Jonathan to come comment on, Jonathan, you're not an EMT no more, huh? You just strictly fire department? Is there anybody here from EMT?
Ms. Dapley will provide some information.
Thank you, Todd. Is this a requirement from the ambulance department?
No, ma'am, this was a request by council members from budget review. This would get us back to 5 ambulances in the parish if we were lucky enough to find people to fill all of these positions. So this would put 2 more trucks in service, which would give us better coverage throughout the parish with the EMS system.
Did we put 2 new trucks in our budget, or, I mean, how are we going to?
We have a new ambulance that is coming with money that we received from Venture Global. It's expected to be here in April. And we have 2 or 3 spare units that we can put on the road. We have just finished spending a lot of money repairing these trucks and getting them back on the road.
Thank you, Todd.
Yes, ma'am.
So right now, the amendment I have up would be to fund those 4 EMTs and 4 paramedics. The total cost would be $593,000. Anybody offer?
I'll offer.
We have to support, we have to vote on this before we transfer the money? How's that work? Okay.
Yeah, at the end, we'll tell you what the
How
negative
much we
is
need to-
and how much you need.
Thank
And
you.
then y'all can decide what y'all want to add to that to have a positive, unreserved, undesignated.
Okay.
Any questions? Mr. Roussel, second. Is there any questions? Machines open. Passes 7-0. Let the record show Dr. Gui is present.
All right. I mentioned the superintendent of flood control. Right now, it is unfunded. And the total cost for that one would be $80,000.
We have that?
Huh?
Oh, she,
It's on the screen. Oh, the screen went away.
total is 80,000?
There we go. You have any questions?
Yeah, are we going to be funding more positions after this?
Yes.
And can you give us that total before we keep doing this domino effect?
Well, it depends on what actually passes.
I mean, just in case all this passes, what are we looking at? Because obviously we have to move money to fund these positions.
About 420,000.
Good with that? Roll the dice. Let's go.
Mr. Blink?
Sure. This is in regard to the superintendent of flood control. Is this new position just going to manage people, or are they going to work towards eliminating risk in the form of getting permanent projects installed? For instance, at the Naomi siphon where we're sandbagging, in addition to the Venice jump where we're still sandbagging.
The reason why we need a superintendent for flood control is we have 3 foremen in that position right now. We had a supervisor and a superintendent, both of those left, and they unfunded the superintendent. the superintendent is needing, because one of our foremen is going to be retiring in February. And he's doing a lot of the work as a superintendent now. And you just ain't going to have nobody in that department to control it if we don't put somebody there. So,
Can you expand, I'm sorry, can you expand his superintendent? What is his duties? Can you,
well, he's going to oversee the whole department, ma'am.
thank you.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at, in addition to just managing people, is this person going to move forward crucial projects to keep us safer, to eliminate risk?
Address that.
Is this,
Mr. Blink, to answer that question, he's going to be over flood control, which is drainage and the levees. So he's going to do, I presume the guy who will be selected for this position would do his best of what he has to deal with. It's not going to perform miracles because we're getting a superintendent or a position. So I don't know what you're gathering or what you're trying to say. This individual who becomes the superintendent will have to delegate authority to our levees and to our drainage system.
He's not going to find money to raise Coast Guard Tidewater Road so you don't have to sandbag it. He's just going to get the people to do the.
He's going to organize and do, look, it's whatever this duties this guy performs.
you know, I'm not, this isn't like a gotcha moment.
No,
or
but let
anything.
me-
If I could, please, though, just for a second. I mean, this is a crucial department, and we have exposure that hasn't been handled in a number of years, and we keep doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. And clearly, we need this person, but the thing is the job description going to be written in a way where they have some autonomy, where they can have their assistant work on getting some grants, work on getting what we need, work with Rostan to get these like crucial vulnerabilities handled? That's what I'm asking. Like, is there
We have been in touch with the departments, with DOTD and everybody else to try to get floodgates. It's not as easy as you think. I mean,
Manage the, recognize the what?
Well, he's got the floor. He asked the question.
I know, but I got the answer. I want to give it to him because, first of all, am I recognized? Are you complete, Mr. Blake?
Mr. Rousseau.
First of all, it's not the superintendent's position to go out and seek those funds. Mr. Lapine and I sit on the Regional Planning Commission. The Regional Planning Commission has already funded this project that you were talking about at the Laverty Gap to raise the highway. And those funds are in place and are being worked on, but the superintendent's job is to supervise as we say it. So without further ado, the project is funded and working its way through the state process because it is a state highway. So that project is on its way.
Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
I'll offer that position. Ask for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Blink. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
All right, the next one we have, and this is if y'all decide to increase the funding for District 4 secretary to match the other secretaries. The total cost would be $3,200.
I mean, it's only fair.
Offered by Dr. Gui, second.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Newberry. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
All right. Do y'all wish to have a funded economic development director?
Are we funding any other assistant positions besides that one?
Yeah, we could do all those.
I mean, if they don't want an assistant, then they can take them out the budget and use it somewhere else. But, I mean, in all
District
fair,
5 and
it's in our charter to
District
have
8
assistant.
do not have assistants, funded assistants. So we could do 5 first. Do y'all wish to do that?
I'm not supportive of that, doing 5. The individual who wins this race can come in and appropriate the money on his own. Some members have run on a platform of removing some of the assistants. And, it's been my position all along that we do some type of consolidation under the council secretary's office to be able to address these assistant positions. And in my position, whoever succeeds me can come to the table, and if he decides to have or he or she decides to have an administrative position, then they can come to the table and fund it and answer to the public at that time.
Do y'all wish to do 8? No. All right.
Have a question from the audience.
Mr. Chairman, we've done a terrible job of economic development in the parish. We haven't had a staff and organization within the department, and you have limited funds to do it. I would suggest, to go along with what Mr. Roussel has said already, I think between the new parish president, whoever it may be coming into it, should be able to dictate what and how they want to promote and support the parish going forward in this thing. So I'd recommend you wait till then.
Thank you.
All right, Economic Development Director.
I'm going to have to agree with Mr. Valley on that one, because I think we need Economic Development Board versus an individual. So that would be up to the new administration.
Next one
Anyone else?
is a permit technician. They're requesting one additional one.
Didn't we pass the temporary spots to get money to pay for that?
We did pass interim training money for someone to take Val's place, who does our oil and gas permits, and we have not been successful in hiring anyone to that position yet. This additional permit tech would be to help in the office with the additional permits that we've had for RV parks, for new home builds, and for also a backflow prevention program, which we passed legislation for but have not been able to keep up with in the permit office, and also to start on the community rating system program.
Yeah, and from the legal department's point of view, this is critical. We get a lot of calls simply because the permit office doesn't have the staff to address all these issues. And obviously, we get complaints from council members about different things going on in the parish. So when you add Venture Global, NOLA Oil, all of the future projects going on, all of the RV parks, it's essential we get more help in that office.
Didn't we put something in the temporary trailer spots that they had to put $100 a lot a year?
Yes, and the revenues should be coming in for that. And so I can get your report on that from, I guess, finance at some point. So, yeah, only to the extent of what they permitted to date. We don't know how much that's going to bring in next year, but, yeah, when people come in, they got to pay the $100 annually for the spot.
Thank you. Dr. Gouy offers there a second. Second by Mr. Roussel. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
All right. This was requested to increase the council secretary's salary by 10% and to also fund a vehicle. Total cost would be $41,843.
Did you say increase their salary by 10%?
I'll offer. Ask for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Blink. Any questions? Machine's open.
Is this one position or two positions?
One.
Passes 6-1.
All right. The only other one I have for manpower is the way that we budgeted for Orchard, because we weren't sure if Orchard was going to pass when we did this book, was we created an object code called Salary and Wages 2022 Civil Service Pay Plan Implementation. In each 515 department of every fund that has employees, the difference between what the 3% was budgeted and what Orchard was going to cost, that difference was put into this object code. So now we need to take those funds out of that object code in 515 and disperse it to the other departments. So all you're doing is transferring it from the 515, 510, 915 to the departments that have employees. Huh? Yeah.
Mr. Roussel?
So when we transfer the funds to the departments, then when will they show up in the manpower table?
It's going to be implemented on November 28th. I've started working on it. I didn't get a chance to finish it.
So the next manpower table that we get will
Should have it.
reflect the new wages?
Yes.
Thank you.
Which is December?
Uh-huh. I send it out every council meeting, so for that December meeting. Yes, 6. And this basically has a zero effect. We're just taking it and moving it.
Mr. Roussel offers that second. Second by Dr. Gouy. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
Just making sure this is everything. Okay.
Are we feeling generous today, huh?
We already did it. Felt generous last meeting.
All right, we can go over the revenues. It's toward the back of your book. The white pages. Is everyone there? All right. A lot of discussion has been had over the ad valorem taxes with P66 closing. As you can see, it really only, the estimates are that it's only going to decrease in '23 by 44,000.
Is that before the appeal is considered or after the appeal is rendered?
That's as of now. The preliminary, number that she gave us, I think was 860 million. So that's based on that. So it did go down a little bit, but from my understanding with talking to her, the appeal is still, in progress.
And so if the appeal is successful on Phillips 66's part, it'll go down from 800 million to 100 million or so?
I don't think it was that much. It will have an effect, but when we looked at it, it wasn't that significant.
Then, as far as dollars to us, you don't have an idea what that would be if they were
No,
successful?
she didn't give me that information. It was hard to tell because they were protesting part of their assessed value.
It's my understanding they were protesting from the 800 million down to 100 million or 200 million. Is that close to what we're looking at?
I'm not sure. I don't have that information on me. I'd have to contact her. But yeah, they were protesting a significant amount of their assessed value. But the 860 million was the total that we're basing our revenue on.
I understand what we're basing it on, but I'm looking for when the tax commission rules are either for us or against us, in my opinion, as far as where you stand on the issue, what impact that will have on our budget. Because going from 800 million to 200 million, if that's the number, that should be a significant hit to us, more than 40,000. So I think that it should be, considered when the answer comes. Someone will have to adjust this budget if it's downward.
Yeah, we are going to take a look at that. As soon as we get the numbers in from her, we will take a look at that and see how it compares. And if we need to make an adjustment, we will.
Okay. And we can continue on with the sales tax?
Yes.
That's a story I'd like to hear.
Okay, we budgeted 10.6. we did the same as we increased it for 22. I can tell you 22, we think is even going to be over the 10 million. We have at least 4 more months to collect, right?
Right. Through February, we'll be collecting, and that'll be going back towards this year. So we are pretty much, if I get the updated information here. As far as sales tax goes, as of today, we are $1.6 million over budget just for the general fund. So the same thing would go, for the fire department. So that's how much we are over budget as of today. And we still have, no, just as of today. We still have December, January, and February, those collections. When we get that disbursement, that will also go here. So we may be, have to increase the revenue budget a little more by the end of the year, because we are significantly over, even after we amended the budget to increase it by the additional $4 million.
What have we collected to date?
So we increased it by 4 million and 1.6 above that also. So we're 6 million above so far?
Right. So we collected $9.7 million so far this year. And our original budget started out as 6.8, I think, 6.6 or 6.8 million. So we're well over budget up until this point, and we've, been seeing the trend continue every month.
And you can double that for the fire department.
Same for the fire.
So that's where we got the 6 million we've been talking about of the increase. 6 million, 3 for the fire department and 3 for the government
Yes.
that we've been talking about. And we anticipated probably be at another 2 million or so above that for us and for the fire department.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, have you annualized this going out 3 to 5 years? And can you tell me how much is stabilized or extraordinary income, or is it reoccurring?
I don't have that information to where if it's recurring or not. The only thing we can go on when we do these budgets is, historical collections. We base it off prior year. We take into consideration all of the new development and the construction going on in the parish, and that's, made the difference here.
I understand the
Going
difficult-
forward, I can't tell you in 5 years,
I understand the difficulty of doing that, but it is doable, and it has to be done if you're going to look at, anyway, utilizing these funds to cover any operating costs of future allocations of what you're going to do with your budget, particularly when you have a new administration coming in, you have a new council coming in. They need to know those numbers, not just that you got some extra money, because we've all heard that we all knew revenue was coming from all these developments that's going on, but can you pinpoint it by development, the specifics of why we're getting the extra income? Is it going to reoccur, and what years is it going to reoccur, so that you all can theoretically budget?
We can't do by development. All we get is a sales tax payment, and we have no idea if it went to the bridge or to Venture Global. But
we did try to do an analysis. We have a lot of cement companies, pipe companies,
I understand.
construction, steel, manufacturing. It could be attributed to either, of the large.
Just so you know, we sat down with Global Venture in the beginning when they were talking about coming here, and we talked about different people that were doing business with Global Venture and the activities in Lake Charles. We also knew at that time what entities were going to receive additional income, and that we could collect sales tax from it. We were also concerned about maybe putting a sales tax clerk or somebody down at Global Venture and analyzing and we could collect these fees that were coming to come in now. I can tell you, with the Lake Charles project, the school board and all the people that were with that, they knew what was coming. And you all getting ready to budget this. So I'm going to suggest more details, people.
We have spoken with Venture Global. They do say construction should continue for at least the next
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. That's on this
On this
phase.
phase.
There will be a phase 2. There's other projects that they have, like that Gator pipeline.
Three-phase.
As the citizens,
And
I
the-
guess
the
I'm
NOLA
looking at it from the
terminal.
standpoint of, we don't want to pay more taxes. We want good services. We want to take care of flood control, and we want to be able to afford quality of life in the parish. So how much is that going to cost us? Where are we going to get the money from it? And how long can we count on it? I mean, it's just real simple.
All right, next, Over the last probably 2 years, we've seen occupational licenses increase. You can even see, we think it will go even higher next year. A couple years ago, they started collecting the correct rates, and that's what's brought on this increase. See any other major? For 2023, we kind of think we're going to collect the same as 22 for GOMESA funds, 2.175 million. But it is a guess. You really don't know until they actually disperse the funds. And as we said earlier, the total for 10% royalties will be, we're estimating around 7.5 million.
An increase of 2 million from last year.
And then the total for oil is what? 4 million what?
Or 6, I think.
I think it's 4.6 for all revenues.
What's the increase? Is that the increase or is that the total? Is that the increase or the total?
The total.
The total.
I mean, I'm sorry, that's just for the oil. The total is 12 million for the total oil and gas budget.
Is that the increase difference?
Yes. You can see here in 2022, the total budget was 10 million, and we're estimating 12 million for this year. See right here?
Where's that at?
That is
It's in the supplemental information
Information.
tab.
Supplemental?
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of shows you what our budget was for 22 versus what the actual revenues are that we collected so far, and then the proposed amount for 23.
Buras Levy District in Grand Prairie, you got about 4 million.
Right, that's the 4.3 million right here. We have to divide them out amongst the levy districts now. It's not just one lump sum, like the 10% royalties.
Is that because of an ordinance?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where's John?
I'm just saying, that I see the Buras Levy District got about 4 million.
Yeah, right here is the levy districts for the oil. 3.6 for Buras, Grand Prairie, 693. For gas, Buras is 218. So,
I like that, John. I wish he was here because I could thank him.
we can go, since we've discussed water earlier, we can go to the water revenues.
Is that back underneath revenues?
That is on page, in that section,
Of revenues?
in the, yeah, page 29. If y'all want to see what the collections are for waterworks, that would be in this area right here. Between water and sewer, it's about 6.8 million estimated for '23. And they also have an ad valorem tax that you can see at the top. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. On an ad valorem tax for the water, it decreased. Is there a reason for that?
It's the same as the general fund.
There was just an overall decrease. General fund, there was a decrease of 75,000.
Is that from businesses or residents? Do y'all know whether?
No, it's just the taxable value that she provided us.
Assessments?
It was just a little bit lower than it was last year. Like I said, it was 75,000 decrease for general fund, but the total of all the funds, it was 184,818 was the total decrease from last year. But that is just preliminary numbers.
And then the next one is boat harbors. They also do not make,
What page is that?
the next page, they also do not generate enough revenue to be self-supportive. As you can see, it is projected general fund will have to transfer 381,000. These two are enterprise funds and are supposed to break even.
What page are you on?
That's 30 of that same section.
On the back page, I got you.
And how much have we paid Go Park to try to collect?
What is that, 2,000 a month?
It's about 2,000 a month.
Plus the interest or the transaction fee they charge every person paying? So they're making over 2,000 a month. Have they collected any more money? Have they gone out and did anything?
Mr. Konovich, the transaction fees go to the credit card companies. That's not bared by, that's not a profit for Go Park. That's a transaction fee that's normally passed on. Back in probably about 5 or 6 years ago, they changed the credit card fees where the vendor used to pay for it, but now it's put on to the customer. It happens at every restaurant, every store, every place you go now. The transaction fees are put there, so it's not a profit for them. But we pay them actually $2,500 a month for collections. We are working to, we'll be eliminating them at the end of the year, and we're working on bringing the collections back in-house to eliminate that part.
Because every time I use my credit card, they might charge me a fee.
They will, absolutely.
If I pay for 12 months up front, I get charged one fee.
Right.
They charging every month.
Well, if you have a charge every month, they charge you a fee.
Not if I pay the whole year.
You pay the whole year, it should be one fee.
But they
Correct.
charging them, whoever pays more months, say they pay 6 months in advance, they're getting charged every month that fee.
Well, the fee is totaled off the total amount. It's a percentage. It's not a fee that's for that month. It's a total percentage that's broken off that gross amount.
They should charge me the once. When I pay for 6 months, that one time, I get charged once.
Right.
They charge an extra fee every month.
That's the credit card, but that's part of the reason we're moving to a new system to take this back in-house and have it proposed and set up for the next administration.
Thank you.
Well, the good thing is I see a 9% increase that we've taken less out of general fund versus 2021, so that's a plus. So we went from 532,000 to 381, so that's a good thing.
They have less employees, that's probably why.
Okay. Every dollar counts.
I know.
And I got a question about one employee that he asked me yesterday. We moved one from the Empire Shipyard to the Venice Marina, and he was supposed to be the Venice harbor master, but he's still a guard.
He is, right now, he's still classified as a helper, but he did put in for the position of supervisor. So that's going through the civil service process.
'Cause he's-
And he's been doing a great job, by the way, down there at the Venice Harbor. He's been keeping the grass cut, the oil empty, the trash picked up. So it's, the complaints went from a lot to zero since he's been on site, and he's been on site almost 2 years down there. But all the guys that work in the shipyards and the harbors all team together, and they move around to different places. As of currently, right now, I have my guys take care of the fishing pier. They take care of the back down as much as they can up here on Walker Road, and they also now currently cutting and keeping the Empire Park clean, doing their times. So it's a good crew. They've done a wonderful job at the shipyard, keeping it clean and picking up the boats. And as you can see, the revenue has changed a little bit.
Can we get him on a call-out basis? Because Friday and Saturday, if we charged for back down, we could have probably made $10,000, but
You would have to set all that up and put it as legislation, and we'd be glad to do it.
they had so many people duck hunting. They went out to the Tidewater Road parked. Mr. Blink?
Yeah, sure. In instances where slips are significantly damaged, are we still collecting slip rent for that? Because there's a number of residents that have complained about that type of thing.
Some slips we do, some slips we don't. It depends on where they're located and what they're putting in there. The slips are being looked at, and there is some money set aside in Restore to fix all that and improve things. And we'll have that teed up for the next group that comes in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to move the money now, or
For what?
the boat harbor and shipyards? You said we got to put money into it?
To do what?
Huh?
It's in a budget.
All right. It's in the,
It's in the transfer, yeah. Okay, so the next section we have is expenditures. Just flip the tab. This is this is for every department. I mean, so do y'all want to go through a department summary, or that's the blue pages?
I know there's nowhere close to the amount of money we need in road maintenance.
They probably need more tractors, they probably need more people, but this is, you know, yeah, I would have to decide where to take it from. I will tell you
Louis?
this, all the grants have been funded, the YMCA.
Wait, one second, Michelle. Can we get, on road maintenance, what do you feel is, I know you've got a list of things that need to be done, I mean, every district. And what was the Mamba Harbor, was it 100 and something that was proposed for road maintenance?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't even cover a district for that. So have you thought about what your reasonable projected needs might be for the next year? Is that something we've had a chance to really look into? And where would those costs be? Would there be materials or engineering fees or what?
Well, the most needed item right now would be ditch bank cutters, and we moved some of the state money over into the capital improvement project to be able to purchase one. It would probably purchase one, but we would need more than that. We have a total of 5, and 3 of them are down right now. They being worked on, but, you know, we have our extra tractors that we have in now. We spent a lot of money last year on getting tractors fixed, so hopefully that would go down. But supplies, fuel, that would be the main thing that would go up.
I think the main one is Highway 11, because what is it, $1 million
Right, I think
a
we're talking
mile?
about two different things.
Yeah,
Am I
Miss-
talking
I-
about
I'm-
road
yeah.
repair?
Are you talking about road maintenance, Miss?
Road maintenance.
I think.
Okay, well, public right-of-way is in the road maintenance fund.
Yeah.
That's why there's some confusion here. So you're talking
Okay.
about road repairs, projects.
Road repair.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the things that we've really, Scott, every week we get something that's usually the same roads.
Potholes and.
Potholes and stuff.
Mr. Kotovich is correct. It's about $1 million a mile to mill and overlay an asphalt highway. So if you got 20 miles of highway, you need $20 million.
And how long's Highway 11? Just Highway 11's what?
I don't know offhand.
It's about 17 miles. About 17.
We talked earlier about grant money and things like that for capital improvements. I was looking more toward some of the daily complaints we have of potholes. And I think we've all suffered that anxiety of not being able to satisfy our constituents. And we talked about patches and patches that don't work. Is there any thoughts of us being able to do something that would be satisfactory in regards to potholes?
Do we still have that pallet of blacktop I had got you to get?
We may have some bags left, yes. We've been using them on different pothole sections, and, some are larger than others. Yes, overlaying some of the older streets, yes, that would do it, because the amount of area that is bad, just fixing potholes and putting a bag or two here, it just doesn't cover it. So I would say overlay it, rip it up and overlay it.
Well, I mean, I can't for the life of me feel that we would have money to be overlaying streets at this point. And I know that we all want that. As Rochelle said, grants maybe could handle that. We don't have a priority list right now, but
I think Mr. Dugas keeps a list, so we can ask him to produce one for you, the list that we have. And I think Mr. Dugas keeps an ongoing list, but.
number would be scary. I mean, we're talking something that's just out of our reach. I'm looking at what can we do to help our residents with the potholes that gives us a little longer result, not something that's going to wash out in a year.
Or them bags I got you to get, the 3 he gave me to test, I put in a pothole, and that was 4 years ago, and it's still there. And if I could get some more, I could fix some more potholes.
And I think the reality of the situation is that's the reality. Fixing potholes, can we do it, how do we do it, and how do we get the maximum length of time where it would stay repaired. Of course, in the back of our mind, we know we need overlays and things, and we should, of course, look at ways to do that. But that can't happen overnight. And when Ms. Jones calls me about the pothole that she's been calling me about for 3 years, I don't know how she voted for me. Maybe she didn't, because I haven't been able to satisfy her needs. And I know if I have a council member, if I call him 4 or 5 times and he doesn't do anything for me, I'm going to think twice about supporting him again. So, I mean, that's the reality of it. And so I really feel that that's a major need that I don't think would be out of the ballpark as far as a budget appropriation. And we should have some directives from the administration on how we can do that for next year. And you know the spots, because we hammer you every week about it,
Manpower and be able to purchase some material, yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, that's not an answer. I don't think we can provide an answer. But I think conceptually, we really need to put that on the forefront. I'll speak to it that forefront in January. Agree? I'm asking for somebody who's on the street doing this on a daily basis that is a feasible approach to take, rather than overlay that we can't afford, that we budget money to be able to fix the potholes.
We understand the assignment.
Mr. Blink?
Yeah, sure. So here it is with the budget laid out before us, and with industrial development happening all around us, you can't pull out on the road without a dump truck nearly running you over. Even with this growth, we can't simply maintain the road system here. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. All right. Just trying to figure out why we do the things we do.
Well, we do things based on revenue. And, if there's money available, we'd be happy to do more. But we can only do what we have revenue to do the projects we have.
I understand. I'm just hoping that we get back in here.
Mr. Blink?
That if is it worth it in the end, right? We take a hit to our quality of life, our way of life, and at the end of the day, we can't fill the potholes in. But there's construction going on, one of the largest projects on the planet is happening here, and still we can't find a way to fix the potholes in the budget. Yield.
Well, revenues just this year, we've increased by $12 million. So those revenues have only started rolling in the last couple of months. So this year, the next parish president is going to have roughly an additional $12 million to work with, and that's obviously only because of Venture Global. So the next parish president is going to have a lot more money to spend on things like potholes, et cetera, and we hope he can accomplish that task.
Thank you. Ms. Rochelle?
I'll just say this, every year, the road maintenance parish-wide project that you see up here, the top line, we put $175,000 in that. They do have remaining $291,000 as of the last council meeting, and it will be getting $175 again at the beginning of the year. Y'all can use this for potholes or whatever. It's just parish-wide, y'all can. All right. I also wanted to say $180,000 was the money we get from the state for grass cutting. We did put that into tractors. I don't know how much $180,000 can purchase you, how many, but they do have that in there to buy more tractors this year, or whatever they need. And I was saying earlier, the grants, the Council on Aging, CARES Act, YMCA, and 4-H, all those grants are included in the budget. I do know to talk on expenditures, we had some people in the audience that wanted to talk today. I know the DA is one of them. Do you want to discuss, come up now? Okay.
I had Rochelle's running the meeting.
Huh?
She asked me what my direction is. I said, you running the meeting.
That's a smart comment, Mr. Chairman.
His budget is on page,
Under what section?
the white pages and expenditures,
Okay.
page 20.
First thing, thank all of you, and good morning. It's still morning, yep. Appreciate being here and being able to address y'all on it. As I've been hearing, the funds, of course, at least some monies are coming in. That's great. We all know LNG. Thank goodness. Our budget is the lowest it's been since 2009. Not only having the recent inflation that we all know of when we go to the store anywhere, but we had a few other times from 2009 to now. Of course, we've had some inflation, some spikes. And so we're hurting. And I do want to say that some of the things that Plaquemines Parish need a lot of work, a lot of things on, and we know a lot of us due to the loss of our coast, our subsidence, a lot of issues with levees and all that, and which is a fact that we all live with every day. But one of the things that I do take great pride in is the work of our office, and that one thing we're noted for is our low crime. We really are. People move to Plaquemines Parish and the new subdivisions as they're built, a lot of times for our low crime. Also our education system, they like the public education system that we have here in Plaquemines. And so it really works. And the way it works is that we jump on matters from the get-go. We don't wait for things like that. We have so many programs that we do today where we involve, of course, domestic violence, drug court, many different things we're doing like this with folks. And it takes money to run those things. I've lost 4 employees in the last couple of years getting a lot more money. Most times they would not leave until they had about a 25% offer of more money. I said, I don't blame you. Go for it. Like this, what are you going to do? We went from 21 employees to 19 over time and then to 16 full-time that I have now. And it hurts. I've done a few things to fix a little bit of that. With the sheriff's office, I have 2 people from their office. We have a cooperative endeavor agreement that they work for me about half-time and the sheriff's office about half-time. It's a great thing for me and for us, for the council, because the sheriff's office still has them as their employees, and so they pay their retirement, their insurance, their vehicles, all the different things you got to pay. They're paying that, so that helps out a lot. So that gives me 18 people, in a sense, that helped out like this, and it really does a lot of good, and it works really well between us and the sheriff's office as well. Now, we put a budget out, of course, proposed budget, and the way we handle these 2 people, as I mentioned with the sheriff's office, is we have a professional services contract, so we need money in the professional services fund. But that's always just slashed, but yet we need those dollars to do it, like this, to be able to pay those. And so it's down about $50,000 from what I think we proposed. I think more than that. Rochelle, I know y'all going to you'd have the numbers for professional services or what we propose and what is there. And so we need those kind of dollars back because we can only absorb so much. I want to say that the DA's office has gotten over the years dollars from certain things that goes into the discretionary fund that we have, but it's been cut so far back. We used to make substantial money, I'd say, to us it was substantial money, maybe $40,000, $50,000 a year, on hot checks. We don't have any checks anymore, hardly. We don't get any money from that. I mean, if we get $1,000 a year, that's probably plenty. And now with Bromart, I do want to say they're not the Bank of Balestras that they used to cash everybody's check there. We get some hot checks from there. So we don't even have that anymore. So that's gone like this. Bonding is not what it is. We used to, the DA's office would get 0.5% of something from bond payments like this. Bonds just aren't much in existence anymore. The laws have changed. You just don't have those things. And the same is true for a lot of things. As we know, with the population going from 28,000 to 23, we don't have the numbers we had in crime before, thank goodness. And also, we don't have the workers, the itinerant workers that worked offshore that come into parish, about 10,000 or so people, more than the population that were coming in and working, Port Sulphur, Buras, Venice, everywhere. That's been down, of course, for a number of years. And so we've lost, most of the revenues that we would get on our discretionary funds, as we called it. So we're hurting. We have no tax, property, or sales. We get nothing. So we're entirely dependent upon the council for monies. And the law, of course, says that that's how it shall provide monies to the DA's office to provide the services it has. And so it's been working okay, but it's really starting to hurt. And I know y'all recognize it with parish employees. And I guess one of my first questions would be the raise, because I've heard a couple of different answers, and I'm not sure what's right. Is it 3% or 5% of what's being given, if any, for parish, for all employees, and we were included in it? The emails said the DA's office and judges and all. So I'm kind of, I guess, half curious about that. I'd hope it's 5, because people are really hurting. And actually, it's not, to me, as I heard at a PPG meeting, I think the dentist says if you get too low, it's not really a raise. It's just to kind of keep you in being able to live a little bit with your bills. And so I'd hope it would be something in the order of 5%, because it would certainly help with the employees. I know with for all of us, and I know certainly in my office, is one thing. Another thing, mileage, that was a cut substantial. I'm not sure why. Fuel is up. And in my business, my ADAs, my assistant DAs, like this, have to travel about like this. Law is changing, always changing. So my people have to be at conferences and training sessions a lot like this. Some of them are local, luckily, but
Most of them are Baton Rouge, and they move a lot of these sessions around the state. They have them in different areas, Lake Charles, Monroe, Shreveport, wherever they have to go like this. And so it takes money to do that. And that was cut also like this, which we really needed. I think it was 7,000 that was cut short. So we'd ask that those kind of dollars would be replaced as well, that we'd have. And under the professional services, one thing I did mention a moment ago is that we use, as I said, how we take care of crime is we take care of problems from the get-go, when it first comes in. We use the care center for a lot of our services on first-time cases and things. Anger management, drug testing, counseling, alcohol abuse, a number of things. I think, and they do a great job over there, and they bill us, in a sense, as far as what they'd be billing, as if someone had insurance or they were going to pay or whatever it is, and it's about 32, maybe 35,000 a year. We were getting, before we had money from the council of 20,000, I think, for that, and last year I believe it was cut out, and so we absorbed some of it, was able to pay some. We can't do it anymore, but that's how we take care of things. That's how we have low crime. That's how we take care of problems in Plaquemines Parish, because we're on it. We do it like this, and you have to have places where you can send people for these programs. If you don't, you're not doing any good at all. And we all know the stories about people go to prison. Sometimes you have no choice. That's somebody's, third or fourth offense, whatever it is. Yes, you don't have too many choices you can do. But first timers, second timers, and so forth, the counseling, the programs that we do, they're very good. They work. 100%? Heck no. Most of the time, yes. Like this, they work very well. But it takes some dollars to pay for the counselors, to pay for the people, that what they have to do. And so we need some money to run those programs, and that's what it is. The other item I want to mention is the criminal court fund. And I'm curious, I don't know, we submit a budget on that, and I don't know how it's changed up, because me and the judges run the criminal court fund, not anybody else. Yes, Rochelle?
The revenues have to be over the expenditures, and the expenditures y'all are submitting is way over. The revenues that are projected.
There was only 1 year in the last 12, 15 years I know of where it was short, and that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
It was.
But that's all, ever. In fact, we've given back, at the end of the year, maybe some of you don't know, but at the end of the year, whatever's in the criminal court fund, the law is that whatever's in it December 31st, half of that balance goes to the parish government, the local government. We've given back on average $200,000 a year. $200,000 go back. So if there was a year that it was out, I don't understand, and we know we can't write checks if we don't have money in the bank, so we don't do that. And there was 1 year, some years ago, where it was short, I think $2,000 or $3,000. It went over. There was an issue with that we cleared up with the government back then. But so anyway, that was just an issue in that. But it almost doesn't matter, because we administer the criminal court fund. We issue the orders, the checks are cut, handle the bank accounts, everything on it like this, and that's how that part goes on that. So that's somewhat minor, because like I said, whatever's there we can spend. That's the law. That's the way it works during the year. It's just at the end of the year, whatever's left over, the money goes back to the local government. That is.
Mr. Blueberry has a question for you. Mr.
Yes.
Blueberry?
Who did?
I have a question. So to answer one of your questions is the unclassified positions got 3% raise throughout the parish, not 5%. Not sure whether 5%, I did hear that was a rumor. I think that was an option that we never really considered. So back to your answer, Rochelle, what is the rule that we have to follow? They can only have the expenditures versus you were just mentioning?
Revenues, the budgeted revenues have to be over the budget expenditures.
The revenues have to be, and his expenditures it was the opposite for his department.
Court fund. Now, what we eliminated in his personal department was $55,000 in professional services and $50,000 he had requested a vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't even address that yet, the new vehicle. But yeah, the professional services is, as I say, because we have 2 employees that we do with the sheriff's office, and so they're paid out of a professional service account and rather than an employee account. And we've had, and as has been said at this meeting, I think every year, I think Bo Black is famous for saying all the time, we're bottom line. And yes, we are like that. But we have monies allocated in the budget for positions that we don't fill, that we don't have, because I have professional services. That's what I do like this. It's almost like if y'all formed out a mosquito control, or what any of these things out there, you'd have a contract payment you'd have. You wouldn't have employees you'd be paying. So you'd have to make that adjustment in the budget. And it's the same thing we're saying, is an adjustment in the budget is what it is. And on the vehicle, I'm glad, thank you for mentioning that, Michelle. Our vehicle, yeah, we put in for one because it's been over 12 years, I think, since the parish government's purchased a vehicle for us. And we've cut back. When I first got in office, I cut back, I think, 3 or 4 vehicles. We down to 2 pool vehicles that we use going to the courthouse and Baton Rouge, wherever it needs to go like that, and then 2 vehicles that we have. Mine and my first ADA. And the vehicles, a couple of them, I know, 100,000 miles at all. So we like to replace a vehicle, of course, with a new vehicle, and so we did request that as a capital outlay, as a capital matter like this to do. And we have purchased, we were able to purchase, I want to say the last 2 or 3 vehicles in the office that we bought ourselves, and we do a CEA with the parish government where it's donated to them. Of course, they're covering the insurance and the tires and the gas, the way it goes through the budget, the whole process. And so we've been doing that. We can't do that any longer, though. We're short like this, and we just can't. And so we are requesting, yeah, as far as a capital item, the only item I think that we've requested, I know of, is a vehicle. And that is another item, yes. Thank you.
You finished, Ms. Newberry?
Yeah, you said you've lost some employees. At what level of employees did you lose? Is it administration? Is it legal? Or what are we looking at here?
Well, as you'd imagine, the DA's office is, mostly, well, not mostly, but a third at least attorneys. And so 2 of those last year, so first ADA and another one, and then domestic violence person and a investigator diversion coordinator person. And they all went for, and they really did go for about 25% more pay. And I said, go for it. What can you do? But I am proud that I do have a great staff right now, extremely dedicated, hardworking people. They're very good. My prosecution team is actually outstanding. They do. You could ask anyone with the sheriff's office about them. They're good. And just so you all know, too, some of you maybe know, our work is not just the sheriff's office. That's part of what we get. We also get, of course, wildlife and fisheries, state police, the federal agencies send us cases, DEA, FBI, Treasury Department. We had a big money, scheme over here in Braithwaite some years ago where they were making money like this, counterfeit operation like this, and they wanted us to prosecute it. State offices, state DA offices can actually prosecute criminal cases better and cheaper than the federal system. What we're not good at, of course, when it's multi-jurisdictional like this, they have the wherewithal to be in multi-states and multi-parishes and everything else, whereas we don't. But if it's a simple burglary case or drug case or whatever it is, we're much more efficient than the federal system.
Mr. Valet, thank you so much. We do have a great legal system here. Y'all work together with the sheriff's office. I think y'all do a great job. Have you looked at other municipalities with the same amount of constituents, population, and look at their budget versus your budget?
Yes, we do that. Our DA organization, we have Louisiana District Attorneys Association. It's very, very hands-on with all of this. It's periodically looking at budgets of everybody else, and also everybody's always interested in where do you get money from? Mm-hmm. What sources do you find money? And of course, we're always going after grants. My last redo of computers and programs like this, I was able to get a $75,000 grant, so it didn't cost any of us any money. So we're doing that on a regular basis. Y'all get reimbursed from grant monies I get for my domestic violence coordinator, about half of her salary, and my victim witness coordinator, about half of her salary. Y'all get that money back from programs that we've gotten. It goes back to y'all because y'all fully funding you cut the checks for their pay.
So my advice to you is if you would put, for the next council in the next year, if you would put together some type of graph to show that y'all on the same level as other populations in the state, or maybe look at this, just like we did with the Archer study, look at the surrounding pay scale. If you would put together and really show some type of visual, it may help you.
All right, but just to mention the 4, I know went to Orleans. Now, of course, Orleans is a city, and the city is more expensive in some things than a rural parish like Plaquemines is like this. But that's where the more money was paid right there in Orleans, and we hear their money problems all the time, but I don't know why they say that, because they spend money. I mean, the DA's office, their budget is like, I don't know, $10 million or whatever it is. And so substantial money, more than that, because they get a lot of federal monies, everything else. But anyway, no, I understand, thanks, but we make do, I know we do, and I guess that's part of the problem is that we're not, at council meetings, we're not out and things like that, so, and everybody knows that the wheels still turn, things get done, but we just know that there's some, I think, obligations and responsibility on funding some of these things. One of the things, I had to come to you guys about a year or two ago when there was the American Rescue Plan, was monies that was passed through Congress for monies because of lack of a shortage of monies because of COVID and this. And so we got some monies for the criminal court fund to shore it up a little bit. But actually the way the system is supposed to work is those monies are supposed to go to local government, who then meets with the agencies that it has to fund, such as the DA's office, such as the parish government, whatever it is, like this, to say, we got this pot of money, we're going to do something with it. Now, what are we going to do now? But we don't hear. Nobody tells
correct.
us.
Every time we get one-time money, just goes straight into the general fund. There's no plan for anything. So I think my advice to you is to work with the next administration and council members to get a plan on what happens with these one-time money. Do they get distributed? Where do they go? Where our problems are? And that doesn't happen. So maybe we can kind of see some consensus in the future.
Right. Well, I know you're going to adopt the budget at the end of the meeting, whatever you're going to do, and of course you have to. All I would ask you, please, is your consideration for the items that I've mentioned, because we need to use the care center. It works great for the people that we have here. We can send them instead of saying doing nothing. You have a ballroom fight. Anger management is a great program, but we can't pay it. So what are we going to do then? And I just find it just not that helpful when all you do is have somebody go in court. Yes, sir, Your Honor, guilty. Okay, 300 costs next. And that's kind of what it is. Instead of us being able to say, we want you to go do this, you're going to be on probation for 6 months and such. That's our problem like this, not being able to do that. And that's where we are. So, and I'm saving bucks, like I said, with the CEA, with the sheriff, that works out great too. But I got to pay my half of the bill. I got to pay my load of that. And that's some monies too that, as I said, we need. And we just can't continue on paying it out of monies that don't, our budget's way down. So, all right. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Ballet. Thank you for appearing this morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Ballet.
Yes.
I'd like to ask some questions.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about your diversion fund. You have a diversion fund?
Yes.
How much you have in that money?
I don't know offhand. I want to say 30,000.
Okay. And the caseload you have, is it more than it was several years ago?
The what now?
The caseload that your office is handling, is it more than you have been handling in the last few years?
Well, it's more right now than COVID. COVID, everything went down, of course, and so it's come back up. Yes, it's back up now. And when you get workers in, such as the LNG plant, whenever you do that, you get some work. When your population goes up, including your work population, your caseload does go up, yes.
And so the attorneys you mentioned, are they full-time attorneys or are they practice law on the side?
Mary, Jerry, none of them do. Jason doesn't. Tamia doesn't. One of my sheriff's persons does, but he does it with the sheriff's stuff. So no, I mean, to me, actually, they don't. I mean, Tamia may handle some family personal matters. I'm not sure. She's a misdemeanor ADA. Felony prosecutors, Jason and Sarah Tesvich.
I guess my point is, are they paid as full-time attorneys with retirement and benefits and all of that?
Yes.
Okay.
But let me just point that out. I have Jason Napoli, for example, is my chief felony prosecutor, who is extremely good, and I think his salary maybe is 115, 110 for an attorney, and full-time, that's awfully low. It's because he loves his job. He loves prosecution. He loves what he does. Yeah. He was the #1 in Orleans.
Well, these questions are not to discredit anybody that's there. These questions are for my knowledge to understand how your department works. And, for instance, the criminal court fund, I heard you mention that the criminal court fund, we divide that money at the end of the year. It's been quite a long time that I remember getting any significant amount of funds out of the criminal court fund since I think the budget cuts, you have been dipping into the criminal court fund to pay people's salaries and so forth. So, I mean, is that something that has basically gone away with the sharing? I remember we used to have a lot of money in the criminal court fund, but no longer.
When our salaries were cut pretty drastically about 3 or 4 years ago, 17 or 18, whenever it was, yeah, the judges and I decided that the criminal court fund could pay like this part of a salary in each office, a person, but that was done for maybe 9 months or so, and then it was cut out. It was stopped.
And then,
But it does not pay, the criminal court fund does not pay any salaries whatsoever, even though in my office, my accountant, I'm sorry she's not here today, she could answer these better. She just had surgery, so she's out. But, we would thought that, okay, since she runs this budget and does most of the work on it, like that, part of her salary could be paid from it. But it is not. It is not paid from this.
I got you. Okay, and, you know, as you alluded to earlier, one of the previous council members stated that you're a bottom line budget. How many times do we have to make amendments to the bottom line budget at the end of the year on a closeout for overspending that budget?
You meant from my office or the parish government?
No, from your office. I mean, do we have to make?
One time in my 14 years now.
That's what you have, Mr. Rochelle?
And that year I was, just at the beginning of that year, my budget was reduced about $250,000 from the prior year. So we almost were within that money.
Right.
It was like $2,000 or $3,000 short.
I'm looking for the amount of, you know, times that we had to go back. We make end of the year adjustments to our budget on a regular basis to make them to balance. Like in your case, since you're a bottom line budget and you decide where you spend your money and how you handle it, which I kind of agree with. And if there is an over expenditure, I was curious to know how that went, because we make those adjustments.
Then I'm sorry, is it a question?
Yeah, she's looking it up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Would you agree you're a bottom line budget, so we budget your money and you're as a public official, you handle the office as you see fit within the dollars that you get?
It was in 2017 that it was short. All the other years it was not. Most of the years, I'd say on average about $40,000 to $50,000 was not expensed. There was money left on the table. And one year is 21,000 short.
We did not have to in 21. I just pulled up the ordinance.
In 21, 18,229 is what my records show was left on the table, was not spent. And believe me, we could spend it. We're a small operation. We know what money's in and out. It's not like it's a big accounting department like this. And so if we wanted to in November, December, we could say, okay, we're going to buy this, we're going to buy that, but we don't. We don't. We've always been very fiscally responsible. We've always left money, except for 1 year out of all the years like this, money's been left. And so sometimes we know with inflation, all these things where we are, that we need some funds. We don't have, like, say, a sales tax or a property tax or anything. You know, like we have zero when it comes to that. And so that's why we operate that way.
Well, I like Ms. Newberry, encourage you to continue to be fiscally responsible as you say you are. And the next administration can look at those documents that Ms. Newberry suggests and move forward with that.
You finished?
I'm complete.
That's it?
That's
Thank you, folks.
Parish legal, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify a couple of statements. And when the budget process went out, I instructed our finance department to make sure that every department in our parish department would revert back to the 2022 budget. No one got raises. No one got extra money. We simply operated on the money that we had for 2022. So when some of these other budgets came in, I instructed the finance to reduce those to back to 2022 revenues and expenditures. So I don't want the finance department to take heat over that because they reduce some of these things. And I'm sorry that Mr. Ballet has lost 2 employees. That's tough. But when you lose 64, that's even worse. So, and when we operate with cars with 100,000 miles, we're operating with trucks and cars with 300,000 miles. So, I sympathize with some of the things he says, but I'm not going to sit here and say we're giving free rides to everybody. Everybody is going to be on the same level as we've done since 2022. So, if there's any miscommunication that the finance did something that they shouldn't have done, that was instructed by me. So I wanted to clarify that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Take a 5-minute recess. Call the session back to order at 11:24. Ms. Rochelle?
The only other thing I wanted to kind of bring to your attention is in 2023, the bond payments will be around 8.3 million. Just for your knowledge.
I'm sorry.
Huh? So the only other thing, if y'all don't have any other questions on expenditures, we have a few amendments on that. In the solid waste fund, in the library was the same way. Their revenues were not enough in '23 to cover everything that they asked for, so I had to eliminate some stuff, and they're asking for it to be put back in the budget. For solid waste, it would be about 1.2
Are
million.
they struggling with the deficit? Are they struggling to?
No, they have their own fund balances.
Right.
And solid waste has about over 4 million. And with the amount of vacancies that they had this year, they probably will replenish whatever y'all take out. And the library fund has over 1 million in there, reserve and designated, and they're only asking for 200,000.
Mr. Blank?
Yeah, sure. It looks like there's enough money for a new garbage truck in there. Is that,
That's what they're asking for, yes, that I had to take out. North is asking for 478, South 789, because 500,000 for some type of trucks. Heavy.
You have 4 million in it, you said?
4 million in there, reserve and designated. So this will not affect the general fund at all.
Can you tell us what page you're on?
Oh, look at your screen.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
I'll make a motion.
You want to do them both at the same time?
Yep.
I'll second.
Dr. Gui seconds.
Number separately, though.
Any questions?
North.
So let's just go over real quick what we're voting on. Rochelle, please.
Okay, give me 1 sec. In the north, solid waste, 10,000 in overtime. Maintenance vehicles light, 7,500. Maintenance vehicles heavy, $126,110. Professional services disposal garbage, 50,000. Supplies welding, 5,000. Ports and supplies tires, 15,000. Maintenance general, 5,000. Heavy vehicles, 178,000. Light vehicles and trucks, 36,510. Garbage cans, 25,000. Compact containers, 20,000. And in the south, they are asking for, to be put back in 20,000 for overtime. Maintenance, light vehicles, 10,000. Maintenance, heavy vehicles, 87,600. Maintenance buildings and grounds, 20,000. Professional services general, 10,000. Professional services disposal trash, 25,000. Ports and supplies heavy vehicles, 32,000. Ports and supplies tires, 15,000. Small tools and equipment, 5,000. Heavy vehicles, 500,000, $820. Equipment, utility boat trailers, 14,520. Equipment garbage cans, 30,000. And equipment compact containers, 20,000.
Scott, do we have any equipment, old equipment that's going to auction on these solid waste truck?
Yes, ma'am, we sure do. We have both automated trucks and some older trash trucks that we've been having for
Quite some time.
10, 12 years. So, yes, we do.
Okay, so we have more than one.
Well, yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
I have a question. The garbage cans, that's for individuals. Everyone has to pay for their garbage can, is that correct? Or is this for the original one, or?
When you build your first house, the first water meter, you get that one for free. Anything after that, they would purchase, yes.
Okay.
Both of them would still be added to your water bill, though. Yes.
Yeah, that
If
just
one
seemed
was
high.
destroyed,
That's why.
if one was destroyed, they could bring it back in and get a replacement, right? As long as the
It depends on
numbers,
how it was destroyed,
well,
you know? Most of the times, yes. If it's done by the truck because of the winter time, the plastic gets hard, the gripper may hit it wrong, and the arms go through it, yes, we replace them.
as long as the number goes by their can. They can't just
They're
bring a
supposed to
can.
be registering them, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Machine's open.
Yeah. Thank you.
That passes 7-0.
And as I said, the library fund is asking for $198,490 to be put back in their budget. And their unreserved, undesignated right now is $1.7 million.
What are they asking for?
Salaries and wages, $22,100. FICA taxes, $320. Retirement, $2,540. Group health insurance, $19,390. Utilities, electricity, $26,120. Communications, telephone service, $10,000. Maintenance like vehicles, $2,000. Maintenance copier overage, $720. Maintenance buildings and grounds, $20,000. Professional services, general, $10,000. Insurance, fire, wind, and collision, $45,000. Supplies, office, $4,000. Supplies, janitorial, $2,000. Supplies, educational, recreation, culture, $2,500. Supplies, food, $1,500. Fuel, gasoline, $1,300. Office computer software, $3,000. Reference, library books, $18,000, and reference library films, $8,000, for a total of $198,490.
Does the air condition come underneath all of that for the Bureau's building?
It needs a new one.
Doesn't work.
Mr. Kognovich, the library, Beerus Library and Bell Chase Library had a lot of maintenance that had to be done this year between plumbing and air condition problems. In those two libraries, it was really expensive. We had some air condition problems in Port Sulphur. There was a lot of expenditures in those lines.
Okay, but are we getting a new one if we're putting money there?
Patricia is going to ask for new next year.
All right, thank you. Mr. Roussel?
Yeah, all of these items seem to be operational expenses.
They were. I had to eliminate them because their revenues weren't enough to cover this when we proposed the budget. But they have the fund balance actually to pay for them. So I just said I would do an amendment to put them back in.
Okay, so I guess most of these items are going to be recurring expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And so the library fund will start declining.
If it stays on this path, depends on how much they spend at the end of the year and what rolls over, we'll have a better idea, what their actual expenditures will be.
Okay.
Ms. LaHaye?
The only question I have is the salaries are only $3,000 more than the group health insurance.
That is how much it
seems
is.
Really,
When we budget for a vacancy, we do family all the way across for health, life, dental, and eye. And that is the parish's share of family insurance for an employee.
so the salary is 22 and the insurance is 19.
Yes, ma'am.
The salary category was for overtime
No, this is regular.
That's regular.
increase?
Yeah, I had taken out a vacancy, we're putting it back in.
Okay, so it's one position. Gotcha.
Any other questions? I'll offer ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Gui. Do we have any other questions? Machines open. Passes 7-0.
The last amendment I have is for that project I was telling y'all about earlier, annual water and wastewater. We normally put $1 million in there. It is up to y'all if y'all want to put that in there. And where do you want to take it from? What designation?
We normally put it, but it wasn't put in the budget.
We normally do put it, but the water fund did not have the funds this year to fund this. Like I said, there's 2.5 million in the sewer projects designation this year.
$1 million from there.
You could take it from there.
Got
I just hope the next council finds a
2.544.
way to make this work in the next year and as we move forward, because this has been a problem every year.
And in that budget, we got 2,544,000. Is $1 million enough?
We normally put $1 million. That's the amount that we put in here every year. They have never gone over that. But Todd would be better to answer that.
Todd, have we, what have we tried to do to fix that wastewater, just try to save on wastewater? What have we done in the past 4 years?
The one behind my house, nothing.
To try to save on wastewater, I don't know that I understand the question.
So the
Try to save money in the expenditures?
Correct.
What have we done to try? Basically, this fund is what we use to maintain aging infrastructure. We have lift stations we have several that are in need of emergency repairs right now. We've got a sewer plant that needs emergency repairs right now. This fund is what allows those repairs to happen. When there's repairs to motors on lift stations, when there's fire hydrants that need to be purchased, when there's clamps that need to be purchased to repair 20-inch water mains that break in Jesuit Bend, all of those come out of this fund. That is what we use this money for.
Okay, thank you.
Don't every time a storm floods a place, we got to replace all them lift station engines?
So the motors are submersible, but the controls are not, which is why when there's a storm coming, Infomart goes into Myrtle Grove and they pull all the controls out of the lift stations, so we don't lose the controls, which are, I think, about $25,000 a piece for each lift station.
What did we spend this year so far? Do you know? I mean,
I believe we're over 800,000 so far this year.
And do you know
Rochelle probably has a better idea.
do you know what our past history is? Just going back up to 3 years?
I can tell you, hold on.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I'm assuming that comes out the general budget on a yearly basis?
It normally comes out of the water fund. In past years, there's been enough revenue in the water fund because there's also an ad valorem tax that helps fund the water fund.
But
The water fund is upside down at this point.
This year, we have spent 466,000, but they have encumbrances of 342, so you have to add that together. In '21, they spent $1,071,000, and in 2020, they spent about 480. So about 800 this year, a little more than that, 1,480,000. It varies
Okay.
throughout the years.
Mr. Blink?
Yeah, sure. In regard to sewerage, at what point does this government shift away from sewerage in certain areas and just say, look, we're doing certain minimal repairs to get the system along. Any new construction is going to be required to have septic treatment plants. And, instead of having this huge expense and burden on the government, make it a little bit more, on the homeowners, right? After next tropical landfall, there's going to be many temporary inundations before there's a permanent inundation, most likely. And so, at what point do we keeping up with this infrastructure that costs a lot of money, doesn't do well in sinking soils and such? At some point, we just have to call it.
You gonna make them drill a water well too?
I believe that that is an idea that we hadn't thought about, Mr. Blink. If there are council members that would like to sit down and discuss certain areas, which areas do we decide we're not going to provide sewer service to that has historically had service to? We'd be happy to sit down and have the discussion. I think that's forward thinking on your part. Thank you for that. And that's something we could certainly discuss.
I mean, I have a septic treatment plant at my house, right? And residents that live on the 2-lane highway, they have septic, right? So already not everybody, they have a sewerage connection, right? So not everybody's enjoying the service, right? It might even be cheaper to give people grants to help them get a sewage treatment plant if they chose to build, versus trying to maintain the system that was built for 10,000 people in the 1950s. There's 3,200 people living down that way.
Right.
Wasn't built in the 50s, I could tell you that, because we had septic tanks before, and you're gonna go into the septic tank, then you go into the drainage ditches, it goes into the drainage canal, then it goes into the marsh. And how many people that have them septic tanks today do the regular maintenance that they're supposed to do on them?
A lot.
Pros and cons. Thanks.
Thank you. You wanted something?
So y'all good with designated for sewer?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll offer as for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. LaFrance. Any questions? Machine's open. Passes 7-0.
All right. The only thing I will have left after this is, what's our unreserved and designated right now?
Did they take that from sewer?
Yeah.
You took that from a sewer fund, huh?
Yeah.
You need to discuss what do you want your unreserved undesignated to be after, with this transfer, because you're going to have to cover the negative, and then you're going to have to decide, do you want 2, 3, 4, 5,000, 500,000 in the
What's the
unreserved
negative?
What's
undesignated?
the negative?
Right now, we're at negative $803,542.
I'd say go take $1 million.
Where?
So if we take the $1 million that judges voted to take from the sewer project, we have roughly $1.5 million left in there. You wanted to transfer $1 million, you'd have a little under 200,000 in the unreserved undesignated.
Yeah.
Do $1 million?
Yep. You want to offer? Dr. Gouy offers their second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Roussel. Mr. Blink?
Sure. The sewage lift station over across from Daybrook Fisheries is kind of sinking into the earth. The whole thing in one piece is
Hey, wait a minute.
cocked sideways and sinking in towards the road. In this budget, is there funding for those emergency repairs?
We have an introduction to appropriate money to start the design for those repairs. Dr. Gouy has it. Because it involves Omega Street, which is one of the largest lift stations we have, and that one needs serious repairs also. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 different lift stations, get them all designed at one time, so we'll have a project ready to go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roussel?
Yeah, I'm looking on the screen. It says fund balance designated PW sewer projects.
Parish-wide sewer projects.
Oh, parish-wide. I was about to say, we're not using P money, PW, right? I'm good.
Anything for the Bureau Sewage Plant?
Not that I know of, sir, no.
So, gonna keep letting water run onto the ground?
If we had money, we could do something with it.
Had, what, 900,000, y'all took 300 last year, and y'all tried to take the other 4 this year, but
The estimate for that sewer plant was between $5 and $7 million several years ago.
did we put it on the infrastructure fund, for grants for the state? I brought it to y'all.
We had 2 applications in for state grants prior to, and those state grants are competitive grants. You have to get points in order to be awarded those grant monies. One of the priorities for points was to have a shovel-ready project. We do not have a shovel-ready project for that Buras sewer treatment plant. It has not been designed yet. And so that would be the first step for the Buras sewer treatment plant, is to appropriate money to have a design started, which is something we can certainly talk about doing if you'd like to do that.
It wasn't designed after Katrina? 'Cause they had
Not
money-
that I know of.
Had money for it after Katrina.
I was not around at that time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So this will transfer $1 million from the parish-wide sewer projects to the unreserved undesignated. Your balance for the unreserved undesignated after this will be $196,458.
That's enough?
I mean, y'all can increase it to 1.2 and put close to 400. That's up to y'all.
That's good.
Okay.
Dr. Gouy offered, Mr. Roussel second. Any other questions? Machine's open. Passes 6-0.
That is all we have to cover. Do y'all have any additional questions on anything?
Does anybody have anything else to bring up for today's budget?
Let me just ask a couple of
Roussel?
questions. I see people in the audience that are here every year asking for money. Obviously, the money's already in the budget, correct, for the Care Center, LSU Ag, and so we had no comments this year, correct?
Council on Aging is receiving $202,000. Community Programs, $150,000. YMCA, $200,000.
Okay.
And the LSU Ag Center is getting its normal, what they get every year, $29,500.
You in the queue? I saw you pop in and pop out.
You good? You need, anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, personal privilege, I really want to send a big shout out and thank you to Rochelle and Kim for doing a great job. This was their first budget process since no more Lori, no more Tommy, who's been here instrumental for many years, but they did an outstanding job, and I just want to recognize those 2 individuals. Thank you.
I agree.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else to come before the Budget Committee? We had the meeting after, right?
1 o'clock.
We'll be voting on the budget at 1 o'clock. So we'll adjourn till then.
Any public comment? Any further public comment before we adjourn?
Must be nice when you got money in there, huh?
Let the record show we're adjourning at 11:48 p.m. a.m.